Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. That is Jack. I am Conrad, and this is the Footy Five with a special edition on club statements. One of our favorite things when clubs have to sack managers and they make statements that say, effectively, nothing. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. But we need to move on in a different direction.
And it's happened a lot in recent weeks. 3 weeks. We've had 3 managers, 2 of them both North London.
Yep. And potentially 2 more right on the heels of those 3.
Oh, yeah, exactly. 5 managers. A lot of managerial controversy this season.
All 3 of these are in London
Interesting.
thus far. 2 north, obviously.
Yeah.
The neighbors that don't like one another at all, Spurs and Gunners. And then Watford firing manager for the second time. Not just the first time, but the second time. And the same manager twice.
They're getting used to that club statement tweet.
Starting off with Spurs. This is now a couple of weeks old, but I feel like you need to at least speak to it.
He
This
started
came
a
as a
trend.
bit of a surprise right on the end of the international break.
The timing was surprising. I don't think the decision was too surprising.
No, I agree with that.
I think if they, after that last match before the international break, they said, all right, you're done, and they said, we are extremely willing to make this change, then that makes sense because you have an entire international break to pick a new candidate, hire a new candidate, and then they can look at their next match. But a Wednesday, right before your new matches, it seemed a bit of an awkward timing, but I guess they had Mourinho lined up. And in my head, I would guess that they didn't want to make this move unless they had Mourinho guaranteed. Because
Well, they wanted to pip Arsenal because they knew that Arsenal wanted him.
and now Arsenal want Pochettino. It's a bit
Right.
of a managerial.
Can you imagine that? We'll talk about that in a second. But
That would be crazy. But I think that it was the right decision, as sad as it is. Pochettino, I don't think it was because necessarily a general lack of tactical nuance or a general lack of ability to develop the players. It was just that it had gotten stale.
they stopped listening.
They hadn't done enough recruiting. So Levy can be a bit blaming himself for saying I may have planted the seeds for his destruction. And at the end of the day, Pochettino built this club to be at a very, very good spot. They should be challenging for trophies right now, and he couldn't get them there because it was the same voice over and over again. And
But the team lacked heart, which is not.
It did.
Like it's yes, a lot of this is on Pochettino not being able to get his message through any longer. But the players,
They gave up on
in
it.
a lot of ways, they gave up, and it's awful to see that.
Yeah, the dude I think is going to be a legend. Did not win a trophy there, which is the big argument against it, but he still should be a legend.
5 years of great progress.
He took them and he's built them to be one of the staples in the Premier League. And now
Perennial
Mourinho,
top 4.
Now Mourinho has a great squad. I think it's one of the best squads in Europe. And it's probably the best squad he could have stepped into for his next managerial role. Because where else could he go? Probably Bayern would be the only one where they would be.
Arsenal
comparable.
is a mud pie right now. I mean, there's nothing good there.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you have a world-class striker. You have okay defensive foundations. When Lloris comes back in the new year, he'll be a great guy between the sticks. You got strong midfielders in Dyer and in Ndombele. You've got, obviously, the talented midfielders in Eriksen, Mora, Son. They should be doing better than they are. I think that Mourinho was the right guy for them. And I think they'll be very happy with it.
Well, I mean, he's bounced them up to 5th in the table. The challenge there, though, I mean, they've scored a lot of goals. They've scored 3 goals. They had 3-0 leads now 2 or 3 times in the last few matches, and they've conceded 2 goals late. So that defensive steel that Mourinho needs to instill in them while still providing
developing.
that free-flowing forward play.
Look, it's developing. I mean, they're playing a bit more restricted because it's Mourinho, obviously. But at the same time, they're showing a lot of ability to go forward and score goals. And if they can just be a bit more concentrated, a bit more effective in the defensive areas, there's no reason why this team isn't a top 4 caliber squad. And with Chelsea, they're falling down a little bit. Spurs are rising right now. They're feeling great about where they're at. They're 6 points behind them still, but they still have yet to play each other, which is going to be a big match, obviously, there. And I think that Spurs are probably the most optimistic out of our clubs that are going to be making club
I think so.
statements recently.
Yeah, certainly more so than Watford. Arsenal, I don't know what to think about Arsenal. Again, we've I don't know that we've defended Emery necessarily, but I don't think this is
We've pleaded for
his
time.
fault. But at the same time, he's shown he looked like Lundberg today looked as lost as Emery has for the last 4 weeks. Just does not know what to do. But fundamentally, when you're back to today, for example, Mustafi and David Luiz, and those guys lack discipline. I mean, it's the worst kind of center back pairing you can have. Somebody needs to stay home and protect, and neither of those guys have the ability to do that.
Oh, yeah. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Leno was great in goal.
He was.
To keep it at 2 goals. The last goal that Cantwell scored for Norwich, nobody came up on him. He had the ball at the top of the 18-yard box, moved right, beautiful strike, but there's nobody there to shut him down.
Arsenal have a lot of problems. I think Youngberg is going to be interesting in that role
for about 2 weeks.
I think they're going to be bringing in somebody new. I think that he isn't a long-term option. But the question is, can you bring in a guy you believe in? Allegri is who they're reportedly trying to get into. I was trying to get into Brendan Rodgers, possibly.
He's not going to leave
Nuno
Leicester.
Espirito Santo. But those two guys both are at projects. Do they believe in them enough to stay with them? Or are they going to make a jump to one of the biggest clubs in world football, in Arsenal?
I don't know that Rodgers or Nuno are the types who are going to jump mid-season. Yes, Rodgers has done it before to go to Leicester.
But that was from Celtic to Leicester. That's a big change.
Yeah.
At Leicester, they're better than Arsenal right now.
But absolutely. Personnel for sure.
If you're looking at Brendan Rodgers, why would you make this change right now? Because you're performing well. They're talking they're saying Brendan ball and things like that. They're praising the way you're playing this team. And why would you leave in the middle of the season for a team that the fans devour their head coach? Versus Leicester, their fans are some of the most appreciative because they won a title out of nowhere. And they don't always expect success. They want to see good football, but they just expect to see some good product. If they lose, okay. And that's such a nice atmosphere to have. They're becoming a big club, but they're nice at the same time.
They're number 2 right now.
Number 2.
8 points clear, which is crazy.
I do feel bad for Unai, though. The guy, he looked like obviously fantastic person, and his leaving statement was one of the nicest and saddest things
it's so sad. It was heartbreaking to read it.
Because you know that he doesn't intentionally make bad decisions. Because from our eyes, we see things the way differently, maybe because we have no pressure.
Right.
Because we're not in the locker room, we don't have to deal with these players as people. We deal with them as objects and as just, it's just FIFA 19. You just move the players around. And for him, it's much different, much more complex to navigate. And the statement, obviously, he hasn't won anything. He got them to a final, and you wonder how good was he there. I think he was mediocre.
18 months, not long enough to really have any kind of draw any meaningful conclusions.
And you don't necessarily blame him for how poorly it ended there, because there's a lot of things that went against him. The fans are ruthless. When they want someone gone, they want someone gone badly. Like when Wenger is a club legend, and he was booted out of there.
It was awful.
And they would want him back, I think, at this point, if they could.
For sure, everything looks better in retrospect, right? But when you spend £10 million on David Luiz and that's your move of the offseason, I mean, then you get Pepe in, and then don't bring him on today. Granted, maybe he's just not a fit right now in the way that club is trying to play. But their midfield, the talent is there. They're just atrocious. Swish cheese.
Literally, you don't know what to make of every single player. Because Aubameyang, yet again today, proved why you're thankful for him.
80% of their goals.
2 goals in this match carried them to getting a draw. Because he is a lethal goal scorer, and he's what you need at the top for your team. And ultimately, Arsenal, I think that, I don't know if Lundberg is going to be the right guy going forward, but it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to handle it, because there's a lot of guys floating around, but can you get the right guy? Because you've had a lot of question marks recently, and you want to try and make sure to get it right this time.
I didn't even move the advance through these. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Blah, 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 blah. Watford. Not as much to say talent-wise at Watford. Quique Sanchez-Flores dismissed the second time. Not sure why they brought him back in the first place. But they've got 1 win in his 10 matches while he was there. Don't know the direction they're going to go, other than down to the championship. I don't see them kind of getting out of the basement here. They are just not it doesn't feel like they're a very well-run club.
You just don't know what to make of them, honestly. They just don't have the talent, almost. They don't have the tactics to stay around the Premier League. They are the worst team in the league. And
by a lot.
Whether their new manager can come in and make a difference will remain to be seen.
Who are you going to get? Who are you going to attract for this?
Because also you think about the track record that you have.
Yeah.
Whoever you bring in, you have to say, all right, manager X, for instance. You got to say, if you get relegated, we understand that. We're not going to sack you for getting relegated in a job that seems like it's going to be impossible to salvage. The job that you got to be pitching to potential managers is rebuild. Go back down, maybe, come back up. Maybe not save it this year. Saving this year would be a miracle. But if you're able to do that, well, that's
they
a
have
fantastic
5 points,
success.
8 points.
That'd be a fantastic success if they can get up this year, stay up this year. But I think you have to be realistic and say that sometimes you need to take a step back. to go forward again. And maybe got to get rid of some of the players who aren't as talented, who maybe aren't as good for going forward, and get a long-term manager and a long-term vision. Look at the teams that are having success this season in terms of being immediately good from coming from the championship. Sheffield United are behind their manager fully and believe
great
in
culture.
tactics. Norwich believed in their manager and the tactics. Don't have the talent. And injuries have plagued them pretty badly. They got a big draw here today against Manchester United, but it remains to be seen how they're able to handle things. Or it was against Arsenal, excuse me, the Norwich draw. I saw your look. You definitely were questioning what I had just said. And it makes you think that, yes, I believe that this manager can take us forward, but you have to be able to trust someone to maybe even fail before they can succeed.
They need a plan.
That's the thing. They need a plan for
They
the manager.
very clearly do not have a plan as a club.
Oh, yeah.
When your plan is go hire the guy that we fired before, that's not a plan. That's somewhat a little bit of desperation, in my view.
Good guy. Like all these guys. All these managers are great people.
But you hate to see them leave, especially in this age where you have a lot of connection with the managers. They talk a lot. You get to know them as people. So when they actually have to leave, it becomes a lot more difficult in that process. But it's the right decision.
Doesn't feel good. Yeah. I don't know if this was the right decision or the wrong decision, but moving on to a club that there's no statement yet from Manchester United around Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I don't know. I don't think so. I think they have to have patience here. The supporter base is very clear in their feeling. But I don't think their ire is directed at Ole. I think it is directed 100% at the Glazers and Ed Woodward for not Glazers. Yeah.
Yes.
For not putting the right team on the pitch. Granted, Pogba has been out for a while, but De Gea has come out and said we're just not good enough in key roles on the pitch right now.
Yeah, I mean they just don't have enough talent right now, and you question it.
Some fans say
should be Ole out. Some fans say support the club, support the manager. And some are saying, how can I support the manager when I don't believe in the guy taking us forward? And you can see both sides. You can see the lack of faith that you would have in Ole and the way that they've been playing because they just haven't had great performances recently. And that's a very fair criticism of how they've been playing. At the same time, though, what do you expect him to do with this squad, honestly? You got to be able to have better players for his tactics and for his system. And then the other question is, what is his tactics and system? Because do you really know what Ole is going to go out there and try and build for this team?
Talk about a plan.
Exactly. Do they have a good long-term plan? If Ole can display that and say, I want to sign some young guys who are going to fight for the shirt, so when we can be struggling, we can be developing, and we can have the fans behind us for a team that fights every match on the pitch. That's a thing I can get behind if I'm the Glazers. But again, we don't know how good the Glazers are at decision-making. That's one of the biggest root causes for this team.
I think that's Woodward is the problem. Right, in between the family and the
they've had a lot of
manager.
flops. They've had very few successful transfers. I think successful transfers recently, Pogba, maybe. Has he done you a ton since you brought him in?
Does he want to be there?
Does he want to be there? Still, he kind of wants to leave still. Lukaku came and went. Alexis was a massive flop. He's succeeding in Italy now. And again, you question, is it just Manchester United? The culture is a big issue. Because you see with Liverpool.
It's a very heavy shirt.
Manchester City. Those are heavy shirts still. There's no doubt that you go out there and that's a lot of responsibility. But there is a passion, there is a overall collective belief that they have in those clubs, and it starts from the top down. You can't just bring together a squad of 18 people and succeed every week. You need to be able to cooperate and work together over a season that's going to be full of adversity. And Liverpool and Manchester City are very good at that. Manchester United are not good at that. And their fans are upset at a lot of things. And I think there's reason to be upset at Ole. But at the same time,
he's playing the hand that he's been dealt.
Playing the hand that he's been dealt. It's tough to say whether or not it's the right guy. If you can find someone to replace him, if Pochettino can replace him, I think you got to make that move. I think you got to say, Club Statement, thanks for coming by, Ole, but you're no longer at the wheel. You're no longer at the wheel, and then you bring in Pochettino. If you can do that, it's the move. But again, that's the issue with having these managers in turmoil because you look at that. And if you're Pochettino, you have to look at that and say, man, do I really want to go to a job that's that stressful, going from Spurs to that job? Maybe he wants to for his career path. We don't know what he wants to do specifically. But United have to decide, do they need to make changes at the top, or does he need to start from this guy?
I think you got to stick with Ole for now and just get the personnel situation sorted out.
I agree with that.
Speaking of the personnel situation to get it sorted out, we've got Everton who have made a lot of transfers with a lot of different managers over the last 3 or 4 years. And we talked about this in the review show for Week 14, but what's going to happen to Silva? He's got a big showdown this week, Merseyside Derby Wednesday at Anfield. Will he make the curtain for that one, or is he going to get sacked if they do lose?
Look, I don't know if you can sack him before that big a match, because how are you going to get your players motivated and behind that? I think you got to stick with him for the Merseyside Derby.
Didn't Puel get fired right after the last Merseyside Derby?
I'm not sure, honestly. But I think you got to give him this match. Can he come up with one miracle? And this is the biggest thing, this is the biggest match of the season for Everton. They're struggling so far, and this is going to be the match where if they're able to come through and get a win here, your season's transformed.
14 weeks, 14 points.
Exactly.
That's not good.
It's awful.
That's their 17th place.
But
and
3
it's not
points
that they
at
don't have the talent, right? They've got good players.
3 points at Anfield would feel like 300.
Yes.
That's the thing. But it's just, can they? And do you trust him to try and get a result there? Or do you say, I want someone else, or I want an interim manager, or I want to send a message to my players?
3 days.
I want to send a message to my players and say, hey, step it up, guys. Or what does that management want to do with Silva? I don't think he's the long-term guy. I think if he loses at Anfield, he's done.
Goes back to Watford. There's an opening there.
Watford are saying, hey, you've met our one qualification. It is that you used to manage at our football club. Come back.
Let's get a plan together this time.
I don't know what they're going to do, honestly. And it's, again, same deal with Ole. But at the same time, it's very different because you say, how much do you've spent a lot, and you've invested a lot in this squad. There's a lot of talent. You should be doing better than you are right now.
Unquestionable. There's
Tough loss against Leicester. But if he loses against Liverpool, I think the fan pressure could be too much, and the results could be too much for Silva to wait out.
He went away to the KP, got the point,
and then it was just.
But then his
players
team
all
was switched
concentration.
off,
And that's Marco Silva cannot play center half for his squad. He has to trust his players to be able to play to the whistle. They didn't play to the whistle. They expected the referee to bail them out. The referee did not bail them out, and they lost.
And even if the referee does call offsides in that situation, he's not offsides. You've got to. The timing on that too, though, was they were well into the 95th minute. 93 on 3 minutes.
You feel bad for Everton. That was just
felt
a
awful
brutal blow for them.
and they have to. They gotta make some changes. I think if they can't get a win against Liverpool, it's done for Silva.
Yeah,
that's the simple fact.
Well, that'll do it for our club statement special edition. Stay tuned for more club statements because I have a feeling that some are being drafted as we speak here today. For Jack, Conrad, this has been the Footy Five. Please like, comment, subscribe, and look for us on the Twitter at the Footy Five. Thank you all. Take care now.